The Shooting Range. In this episode, Pages of History, Germany's first self-propelled howitzers, Triathlon, comparing Rank 2 medium tanks, and Metal Beasts, the African strike Kestrel. New mighty winter vehicles are going to be featured in Metal Beasts pretty soon, but today we'd like to introduce you to a unique combat helicopter coming from South Africa. Please welcome the Royvolk Mark 1F CSH. Its name means Kestrel in English. It has a classic helicopter design with two rotors, one main, helped by another one on the tail. The vehicle is propelled by two turboshaft engines. The central part of the fuselage houses self-sealing fuel tanks, and the nose carries a turret with a 20mm autocannon and a total ammo pool of 700 rounds. The crew is protected by composite armor seats. The helicopter can carry rockets, ATGMs, and guided air-to-air missiles. Much like most helicopters, the Royvolk can be used in two primary ways. Number one is arming it with rockets and air-to-air missiles. You can take these even at the start of the battle. The tactic is straightforward, but requires quite a bit of skill from the pilot. Choose the spawn point closest to the tank mount. The faster you get to the enemy, the more your effect of surprise. You'll need to fly ultra low, dodging obstacles and almost shaving the trees with your rotor. Go around the tank map along the side of your choosing and turn for the attack. Your priority areas are spawn points and the closest exits to them. That's where your chances of finding targets are the highest. Once you spot one, make a couple salvos depending on how thick your target is, and turn to cover right after. The longer your attack, the lower your chances of making it back whole. Rockets rarely have issues damaging tanks. A couple of penetrations are usually enough, and those aren't that tricky with a ballistic computer. Just keep in mind that the pylons are pretty wide apart, so you need to aim a bit to the right or left, although this won't take long to get used to. Remember that you have a cannon too. It's not that bad against light vehicles and can save you a few rockets. The main difficulty of this tactic has to do with the Royvolk's size. South African vehicles are often gigantic, and this heli is no exception. It's an easy target for anything that can shoot up. Moreover, its considerable size affects handling. Inertia becomes a major pain, limiting your activities low above the ground. But all of these flaws can be ignored if you employ tactic number 2, where your main goal is to score enough spawn points to take up to 16 Makopa ATGMs. Their speed, range, and penetration rate exceed even the famous Hellfires. The only thing you need with these is to keep away from the battlefield, launch some missiles, and dodge incoming AA fire. By the way, the Royvolk has some real good tools for self-defense. First, it has the Mistral air-to-air missile, familiar to most War Thunder players. Second, it has an autocannon turret for fending off those who want to get close. And third, a whole bunch of countermeasures, enough for an entire battle. With all of these, the South African Kestrel makes for one of the best strike helicopters in the game. In May 1940, the German army began their attack on France. It was more than just a battle of French and German tanks. It was a clash of two opposing concepts. The Germans used tanks as huge steel fists, making a push, breaching defenses, and seizing initiative. Meanwhile, the French assigned tanks to infantry regiments, creating small groups. Only some cavalry tanks had more freedom in their activities. Now we know that the German approach was better, but back then, no one really had a good understanding that tanks should not be tied up by sluggish infantry. Still, soldiers shouldn't be left with no support. That's why the Germans invented a new type of vehicle back in 1936, assault guns. Those SPGs accompanied infantry in their attacks, targeting tanks and light fortifications. For a while, even 75mm calibers were enough, but the urban combat of 1942 changed things. The Army felt an urgent need for guns capable of demolishing entire buildings in just a few shots. Even the 105mm caliber couldn't handle such a task. Next, they tried heavy howitzers with a caliber of 150mm. All they needed to make it work was a suitable chassis. The Germans only had a couple months, so they tried everything they had at hand. At first, they installed an open compartment onto the chassis of a Panzer II. Then they tried the Panzer III, but the best one was built on Model 4. The Alket company used the experience they had received and created a compartment with 100mm thick inclined armor, while Škoda adapted the howitzer to work on a ball mount. With the new defenses, this gun could even be used on the front lines, shooting over open sights. The name, however, produced quite a bit of confusion. As was often the case, it had been changed multiple times. The SPG was first named an assault howitzer, but to prevent it from being confused with the Pz.IV, it got a new name, the Sturmpanzer, or the Stupa for short. Despite numerous misconceptions, this is the first and only Sturmpanzer. Machines based on Panzers II and III never bore the name. If you think about it, how could an open-top vehicle be an assault gun? There's also another name for the Sturmpanzer, the Brummbär. It's a nickname used exclusively by the Allies. The production of the SPGs was organized in a frugal way. Some of the machines were made from retrofitted Panzer IV tanks, while the driver's optics were taken from Porsche Tigers, when those were remade into the Ferdinand tanks. There was still a major flaw in the design, though. The weight of the new SPGs reached 28 tons, making them too heavy for the chassis. The road wheels and side clutches were falling apart on the move. Later versions had their compartments lightened and ammo reduced. Many SPGs received steel-lined wheels, but it didn't help much. The Stupas were breaking down all too often. Still, despite the flaws, the machine turned out pretty good. It had only one counterpart in its medium class, the Soviet Su-122. It was faster than the German one, but had inferior firepower and armor. And of course, we can't ignore the Sturmpanzer's big brother, the monstrous Sturmtiger. But this Wunderwaffe is a story for another time. After multiple requests in the comments, today's triathlon will have a contest among Rank 2 medium tanks. Some of them became true legends, the first new generation machines and starters of famous families of vehicles. But what could they show for themselves? Please welcome the participants. The American M4A1 Sherman, the German Panzer IV F2, the Soviet T-34 Model 1940, the British Cromwell 5, the Japanese Type 3 Chi-Nu, the Italian P40, and the Swedish Pz.IV M42EH. The first stage will have them race across fields, snow, and desert. The tanks line up at the starting line, and go! The British tank gets the lead right away, followed by the Pz.IV and the T-34, with the rest of the race lagging behind. The desert introduces almost no change to positions, just the German team climbing to 4th place. It didn't last long, though. The snow slowed the Panzer down considerably. The riverbed shows the German and American crews going almost nose to nose, and here's the finish line in sight. The British team is still in the lead, followed by the T-34, the Swedish, and the German tanks, but the Italian crew gets their second wind all of a sudden and snatches 5th place. The second stage will test the tank's armor. We'll be using a German 50mm gun armed with capped rounds placed 700 meters away. The British, German, Japanese, and Swedish machines are done with the very first shot. With lots of flat armor plates, they're easy targets for enemy fire. The remaining machines, though, have more sophisticated designs. Each tank has its own vulnerable areas, like flat pieces or plate seams, but hitting those requires more time and a careful aim. Finally, the last test will have the tank crews shoot some armor themselves. We'll take 2 Soviet KV-1 tanks for targets and place them at the same range, 700 meters. One of them will face the shooters with its side, the other with its front. The winner has to destroy both targets first. All gunners start with the sideways tank. Open fire! 3 tanks have been destroyed. The Italian and British crews needed additional shots, but the Soviet and Swedish tanks couldn't defeat even the side of the heavy target. Going back to the leaders, the Sherman reloads first, but hitting the front brings no result. It too needs some careful aiming for the driver's vision devices. The Chi Nu encounters the same issue, but the German participant has no trouble dealing with the second KV. The American crew finishes second, the Japanese won third, and a bit later, the Cromwell and the P-40 report success too. Let's sum up. The bronze goes to the British Cromwell for the best mobility and good rate of fire. The remaining medals are pretty hard to award, though. 3 crews deserve to be awarded the gold at once, since they all showed excellent performance. But one of them has something extra. So we'd like to award silver to the German Panzer IV F2 and the Soviet T-34, while the gold goes to the American Sherman for its vertical stabilizer that significantly improves combat efficiency. Well, let's leave our teams to their targets and move on to answer some of your questions from the comments. The first question was sent by a player called CarCC1. If I buy a camouflage for the Pz.IV M42, for instance, will it come to all tanks in the Swedish tech tree? Hi there. Camouflages are unique for each plane, helicopter, tank, or vessel, and are purchased separately. Lester asks, do you have any tips for the Focke-Wulf Ta-152? Hi, Lester. The C3 model performs best in energy and frontal attacks, while also being useful against tanks, thanks to its 30mm armor-piercing belt. The H1 model combines good speed and maneuverability, especially if you know how to use your flaps. Another question comes from Brian de Guzman. Can 3 nuclear bombs be dropped at a time? Hey Brian, it's possible in theory, but in practice, one of the bombs will surely explode earlier than the others, even if 3 of them are dropped at once. Imerium Ecuador writes, what is the best rank 4 Swedish aircraft to research? The J-21A2, the A-21A3, or the T-18B? Hello there. The most versatile one is the A-21. It's good for both air battles and CAS. If you're looking for a fighter jet, go for the J-21. The T-18 can carry a good load of bombs for tanks, but it's almost helpless against enemy air. And the last comment for today was written by Leon Dan. Can a 10-kilogram bomb from the Heinkel 51 with floats kill a mouse? Hi, Leon. No, this bomb doesn't have enough explosives to destroy the mouse. You need to use at least the 50-kilogram ones. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to behave well if you don't want to get coal. Leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.